Welcome back to OT Sports. Today we got week 14 of the college basketball Power 40 rankings. If you guys are enjoying these videos, make sure you go down there and leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We got plenty of content around here. College basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and MLB. As of right now, we're doing college basketball, we're doing NFL, we're doing NBA, just because those are the ones in season right now. But we do college basketball and MLB when those seasons are up and running every single week. So yeah, make sure you turn on the notifications to make sure you don't miss out on any of those. As always, my Discord and X are linked in the description. You can join that, you can follow that, whatever you'd like to do. But let's just get right into the Power 40. So we're going to start it with number 40, Mississippi State. They had a kind of a tough week, losing 2 games, losing to Ole Miss on the road and Alabama on the road. They kind of got blown out by Alabama. Ole Miss was a little bit closer. That's kind of a rivalry game, the Egg Bowl, but for basketball. And the reason I know they're 14-8, but the reason I kept Mississippi State in here is they're still very high in KenPom, 42 overall, 79th in offense, 20th in defense. They were in here last week, and they had 2 really tough SEC road games. So I kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. Kept them in here over teams like Nevada. Kansas State's on the edge right there. Memphis. So yeah, they kind of got the benefit of the doubt. I kept them in here at 40. Number 39, I got Gonzaga. They took another loss this week, and they are just sitting right on the edge. I don't even know if they're going to get in the tournament. They're going to need to win their conference, which I think is very much possible. I think they're definitely the second best team in their conference. We'll get to St. Mary's in a little bit. But they have a golden opportunity this weekend to go into Kentucky and beat them. Kentucky's been struggling at home recently, losing 2 home games in a row. They really need to get right, but Gonzaga really needs this one to just be able to get into the tournament. Because if they don't win their conference tournament, I don't know if they can get an at-large bid if they lose to Kentucky this week. They will have a chance to prove themselves. I thought about moving them out of the rankings, but they're still number 21 in KenPom, 28th in offense, 35th in defense. That's overall very solid all across the board. So I kept them in here at 39, but they are just sitting right on the edge. 38, I have Virginia. Welcome back to the rankings, Virginia. They still are just abysmal on offense, but that defense is elite. Just outside the top 10 in the country. They're on like a 6-game win streak, I believe, right now. They've been kind of just taking care of business against the lackluster bottom feeders in the ACC, but they have a really tough game. It is home. Their next couple games are actually pretty tough. Miami, Florida State, Pitt, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, and then UNC. Those are kind of the better of the teams in the ACC, but for their win streak, they really have just been beating up on the bad ones. Georgia Tech, NC State, Louisville, Notre Dame. But they did just go on the road and beat Clemson, so that was a pretty impressive win. I put them in here at 38. The offense isn't going to get them far, but the defense is a really bright spot. I'm just not too sure how legit this team is, but they're in here at 38. Welcome back to the rankings. Cavaliers. Number 37, I got Washington State. The Cougars make it into the top 40 for the first time this season. They have been looking really good, honestly, as of recently. They're sitting right now. They're tied for second in the Pac-12. They're on a 3-game win streak. They just had 3 huge wins against teams that were competing against them for the second seed in the Pac-12. They beat Utah. That was last week. And they also beat Colorado last week. Honestly, took care of both of them pretty handily. And then they went on the road to Washington, the Huskies, and beat their rivals in overtime. That was a very impressive win. They have a huge game this Saturday against Oregon on the road for second place in the Pac-12. That will be a very fun game to watch. That is this Saturday. But looking at KenPom, Washington State was honestly higher than I thought they would be. They're 49th in offense, 50th in defense. That's pretty solid all around. They're 43rd overall in KenPom. And they're sitting pretty nice at 16-6. I think if they keep up at this rate, they should get an at-large bid. But right now, they're probably sitting close to the bubble. Number 36, we got Florida. They had a tough loss to end their week against Texas A&M. But they did take down Kentucky on the road, I will say, which is pretty pretty impressive earlier in the week. So Florida man, they had a rough loss. I don't want to say rough, but on the road against A&M. That was a tough way to end out the week, especially after beating Kentucky on the road. I was getting ready to move them up a bunch. I kept them where they're at, but they're actually very solid in KenPom. 19th in offense, 82nd in defense. However, they're honestly just kind of like a. They kind of remind me of Kentucky, to be honest. They're kind of a more balanced version of Kentucky, and I honestly might like that even more. They're sitting at 19th in offense at 82nd in defense, so they're 12 spots behind them in offense, but 20 spots ahead of them in defense. I honestly might like that more than Kentucky, to be honest. Kentucky is higher overall, but that is just because they have a very elite offense. Florida did just go in there and beat them, so if that's saying anything. Ole Miss at 35. Honestly, I think I just had them too high. They didn't really do much for me to kind of, move them down like I did. I just kind of felt that I had them a little too high. I mean, they did get beat up on by Auburn at home. That wasn't a very good look. But they did beat Mississippi State, get their first quad one win, I believe. Actually, no, because they have Memphis. But actually, I don't even know if that's a quad one win anymore. But Ole Miss, I don't know. They don't really have that much on their resume, and KenPom wise, they're just not great. 31st in offense, 142nd in defense. So I was comparing Kentucky and Kentucky. This is just I was comparing Kentucky and Florida. Sorry, this is kind of just a worse version of both of them. I mean, a decent offense at 31st, but then a even worse defense. So I don't know how legit this Ole Miss team is, but they continue to win, and they got a pretty big one this week against Mississippi State. Northwestern had a pretty tough week, losing 2 overtime games this week. First one was on the road against Purdue. Gave them a little bit of slack. I wasn't going to drop them. But then they lose on the road against Minnesota. That wasn't one you wanted to see them lose. But they ended up losing it. So I had to drop them a little. I think I dropped them like 7. Just because, I mean, losing 2 games the same makes it a little rough. 33rd in offense, 92nd in defense. I think right now they should be in the tournament. They have a pretty nice resume. Nebraska, very impressive week. They, they went out and beat Wisconsin, comeback win in overtime. That was a great game to watch. And then they almost go out on the road against Illinois and take them down. They were this close. They lose by 3 in overtime. I will say it again, it was on the road. So overall, a very impressive week for Nebraska. Both overtime, they win against Wisconsin, they lose Illinois. This is their first time in the top 40, so welcome the Cornhuskers. 37th in offense, 79th in defense. This is a team that will live and die by the 3, which does concern me a little come tournament time, but to be honest, they probably will get in around maybe 8 or 9 seeds, so honestly, I kind of like more that they would get in as a lower seed with how good they are shooting. They could potentially make a run in the tournament. I'm not putting it past them. Indiana State, welcome to the rankings. The Sycamores, they just went out and beat Drake. It was a really close first half, but Indiana State pretty much had control of the second half for the majority of the way through. There was a portion with about 5 minutes left where Drake got back into it. But Indiana State was leading for the majority of the second half. They looked really good. Drake was a team I considered for the top 40 multiple times. They're a really good team out of the Missouri Valley, but Indiana State, man, they're 11-1 in conference play. They're actually very high in KenPom. 14th in offense, 89th in defense. That puts them at 36th overall. The Sycamores, man, really good, 20-3. Congrats to them. They sit here at 32. Oklahoma at 31. They just continue to plummet. They lose by 11 against UCF. Now I will say they got a really nice get back on track win on the road against Kansas State, but then they go out there and lose to UCF. Not great. They're still actually pretty high in KenPom, 54th in offense, 22nd in defense. But to be honest, I'm not really too high in Oklahoma at this point. They just continue to fall lower and lower in these rankings. They have hit quite a bit of a cold streak. Texas at 30. I don't know. I'm starting to like them a little bit more, to be honest. They almost beat Houston earlier in the week. That would have been a huge game to win. They lose by 4 in overtime, but they looked really good in that one. And then they go out there on the road against TCU, a top 25 team at the time, and they take care of business. They win by 11. Texas is a team I'm kind of coming around on, to be honest. Max Abmas has looked really good. They're 26th overall in KenPom, 22nd in offense, 60th in defense. They look really good. They're one spot ahead of Oklahoma. They're one spot behind Oklahoma, but Oklahoma hasn't looked good recently, and Texas, honestly, has looked pretty good. Yeah, and like I said, Texas is a team I'm kind of coming around on. I was really low on them out of the start of the year, but Dylan DeSue, Tyrese Hunter, Max Abmas, like I said, he's almost at 18 points per game. They are starting to get me back on track a little bit, to be honest. Boise State at 29. They're actually pretty low in KenPom, but they got another big win on the road against New Mexico. New Mexico, I believe, was undefeated in the pit. No more, no longer. Boise State snap stats, and they're a lot lower. Yeah, like I said, in KenPom than I thought. 45th overall, 37th in defense, 37th in offense. Uh, sorry, 75th in offense, 27th in defense. They're a very good defensive team. The offense does lag behind a little bit, um, but they're 16 and 6, and I believe they're tied for first right now in the Mountain West Conference. Yeah, they are tied for first. Actually, I think they are first because they just actually I don't know. No, they're tied for first with Utah State at 7 and 2. New Mexico and San Diego State trailing close behind. But they got a really tough game this week on the road against Colorado State. That's tomorrow. That's a huge game. And then they also go on the road and play Utah State for first place in the Mountain West. That's a really big game. So Boise State, the Broncos have quite a week ahead of them. We will see how they do. In that Colorado State at 28. The reason I put them ahead of Boise State was because they're a lot higher efficiency wise. I think they might be inside the top 25. No, they're not, but they're pretty close. 34th overall, 24th in offense, 75th in defense. They're kind of just the opposite of Boise State, a top 30 offense and 75th in defense. Boise State is 75th in offense and a top 30 defense. So you could pick what you like, more defense or offense. Personally, come tournament time, I'm a little bit more high on defense, but Colorado State continues to win, so they will continue to move up. They got a huge win against San Diego State this week at home by 8. But yeah, like I said, they play Boise State tomorrow. They do have it at home, so that's a pretty big advantage. They need that one to move up a little in the Mountain West. TCU, the Horned Frogs at 27. They lose. They had a pretty tough. Well, they did beat Texas Tech earlier in the week, so I was getting ready to move them up quite a bit. But then they go out there and lose to Texas at home. This Saturday they got to go on the road and play against Iowa State. That place is almost impossible to win in. Iowa State's 13-0 at home. I mean, that's going to be a really tough game. I'm not expecting them to win it at all, but they are still 16 and 6, very high in KenPom, 32nd in offense, 52 in defense. Very solid team. But yeah, that game on the road against Iowa State is going to be pretty tough to win, especially with Iowa State. They are needing a get back on track kind of game. That's going to be a tough one. We'll see how they look though. St. Mary's at 26. They go on the road in a ruckus environment and beat the Zags, who were desperately needing a win. They go out there and win by 2. They also beat Santa Clara earlier in the week. They are still undefeated in West Coast Conference play. They're 9-0. They're first in the conference. And yeah, they just continue to be one of those teams that is just always good. They're 18 and 6, 70th in offense, but 14th in defense. So your typical St. Mary's team. Aiden Mahani, I think that's how you say his name. He's been really good for them, almost 15 points per game. St. Mary's, the Gales, man, they got a squad and they just continue to win. And they just continue to be good every single year. So good for the Gales. They're just outside the top 25, and they were. I mean, I was this close to putting them there, but I held off just a little bit. I want to see. I mean, if they go 2-0 this week, they'll probably be inside the top 25 next week. But moving into that top 25, we got Utah State sitting at 25 still. I honestly think they're a little bit overrated. They lose on the road against San Diego State by 14. That was a really big win for the Aztecs. Utah State is 43rd in offense, 49th in defense, so top 50 in both, but nothing really too flashy. They just kind of get the job done. Overall, very solid team, but they are a little bit lower in KenPom than the two Mountain West teams ahead of them. I know they are still first, but you know, KenPom favors the two ahead of them. Next up, we got New Mexico. They just got beat at home, which doesn't happen very often, but they get beat by Boise State this week. That was their only game. They're still very high in KenPom, however. 19th overall, 38th in offense, 24th in defense. That is a really good Lobos team right there. And I think they're right now the second best team in the Mountain West. You could definitely make an argument for first. I want to call you crazy. But the highest ranked Mountain West team I have right now is San Diego State. They went out there and beat Utah State pretty handily by 14 points. Now I know they lost on the road to Colorado State earlier by 8 early in the week. But I don't know. That's a really good Colorado State team. They were needing a win. But San Diego State is still, top 20 in KenPom, 47th in offense, 17th in defense. To be honest, I kind of prefer that over New Mexico. New Mexico, top 40 in offense, top 25 in defense. San Diego State, top 50 in offense, but almost top 15 in defense. So, I mean, they're just stronger on one side and maybe not as balanced, but they have Jaden LeDee. He can take over a game at any point, 20 points per game. I mean, that is really good. So honestly, I think as of right now, San Diego State would be my best team and my pick to win the Mountain West. Texas Tech had a tough week, going 0-2 this week on the road against TCU. And home against Cincinnati. The Cincinnati game was kind of a head scratcher. I was not expecting that. Cincinnati isn't a bad team, but I expected a little more out of Texas Tech. They were first in the Big 12 heading into this week, but I don't think they are anymore. I'm gonna check really quick. Yeah, they're not. They're in a three-way tie for third with Baylor and Iowa State, but still I have them at 22 because they have a really good. What was I gonna say? They have a really good offense on it, which is kind of weird. They're usually a defensive first team, but top 15 in offense. The defense is not their strong suit this year, which is weird. Just barely top 90 in defense, so that does concern me a little bit for the Red Raiders. But I still got them at 22. FAU at 21. They had a nice one-game week. They beat Tulsa by 32. Scoring over 100 once again. The offense looks legit. It's the defense that worries me. 11th in offense, but 78th in defense. I don't know how sustainable that is in the tournament, but I do think as of right now, they should be in the tournament. Probably around a 6 seed, but we saw what they could do last year. I mean, they were a 9 seed and made it all the way to the Final Four with a buzzer beater away from making the finals, and who knows what could have happened. Now, that UConn team last year was on a mission, so I'm not saying it, but it's possible. Dayton at 20, they had a 20-point win over George Washington earlier in the week, and then on Friday last week, they had a 5-point win against the Bonnies. They're still very solid in KenPom, just outside the top 15 in offense, and just inside the top 70 in defense. Flyers putting together a very solid season. I got them inside the top 20 in my Power 40. The Cougars, BYU, at 19. They had a nice a nice, 1 game week, kind of relaxing on the road against West Virginia. Not the best team, probably the worst team in the Big 12. I don't know. Oklahoma State might be worse. It's one of the other. Maybe UCF, but I don't know. I think those two are probably the worst. But yeah, BYU. Now this week is gonna have a little bit of a tougher stretch. Tomorrow they go on the road against Oklahoma, and then Saturday they have a home game against Kansas State, a team desperately needing a win. We'll see how they fare in that one. But I got them at 19. They're still very high in KenPom, which makes me feel a little bit better about them. 8th in offense, 23rd in defense, which I think is just kind of crazy that they're that high. They're 9th overall in KenPom, 16-5. But I still got them, down here at 19, just because the resume just isn't quite there. But they have the record and the numbers. Creighton at 18, they fall back. They were doing really good for a little stretch there. Had a nice 3-game win streak, and then lose at home by 1 against Butler. This defense, I don't know. They didn't have a great game against Butler, allowing 99 points at home. But they're still very solid in KenPom. They're actually 18th overall in KenPom. 27th in offense, 25th in defense. That's a really good team. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's coaching or something. But they just sometimes they'll go on a little streak, make me feel better, and then they'll lose one. I don't know what this Creighton team is really about. We're over 20 games in the season. I just want to see more of them play. I feel like I haven't watched much Creighton this year. Kentucky at 17, man. This defense is just scary to witness. I honestly think as of right now, this team could get upset in the first or second round of the tournament. 7th overall offense, but 102nd in defense. That's just not going to cut it, and we saw it. They lost 2 home games this week, which is bad. That's really bad. You can't be doing that. You just can't be doing that. Antonio Reeves has been really good. Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepard, DJ Wagner, Trey Mitchell, Justin Edwards. They have a lot of scoring, and they're averaging almost 90 points per game, but this defense is just scary to witness. They give up, like I said, they lost 2 times this week, so they had to fall quite a bit. I think they fell like 7 spots. Losing 2 home games this week, allowing 94 against Florida and 103 against Tennessee. That just can't happen. So they had to get punished quite a bit. This defense just looks bad, and it's kind of scary, to be honest. South Carolina, welcome to the top 25. I think they're moving up 11 spots. They're here at 16. They had a huge week, taking down Tennessee on the road by 4, and then beating Georgia, another really good team, by 10. Tomorrow, they play Ole Miss at home. This team is 19-3. They're first in the SEC. Actually, they're not first, but they're second in the SEC, only behind Alabama. Now the KenPom numbers is why I didn't move them higher, because I was considering like 13 for them. I didn't put them quite up there, just because of how low their KenPom numbers are. But they continue to win, so those will continue to move up. 58th in offense, 41st in defense. It's a pretty solid team, but honestly, the lowest of all of these teams in the top 25. But they continue to win, and if it gets the job done, it gets the job done. So they're here at 16. The Cyclones at 15. 50th in offense, but number 5 in defense. They lose on the road against Baylor by 2. It was on the road. I'll give them that. They made the buzzer beater. It got waved off. That was a crazy ending in Waco. That was a great game. They made the buzzer. Yeah, like I said, they made the buzzer beater at the end to win the game. but gets waved off because the shot wasn't up in time. Ridiculous ending. Scott Drew got ejected. I mean, it was crazy. Baylor hangs on and wins by 2, and Iowa State loses one, in which, I mean, they kind of had to come back for it, and they were up 7 with about 8 minutes left in the game. Baylor did come back and end up winning, but that was a really great game. I mean, I'm gonna give Iowa State a little bit of credit. They played a great game, losing by 2 against Baylor on the road. That's not at all a bad thing. Speaking of Baylor, I got them at 14. The Bears beat Iowa State, so they by my my uh, my way of ranking. Now I know I have some exceptions here and there, but it's all right. Yeah, Baylor just beat them, so I felt they deserved to be one spot ahead of them. They fourth in offense, 74th in defense, so kind of the opposite of Iowa State, but they beat them. They were at home. The offense didn't look great. The defense um, held their own against Iowa State's mediocre offense, so I guess there's that. They did allow almost 70 though, but that's pretty solid. That's not like bad or anything. Now I'm not too sold on this Baylor team yet. Um, they tend to they're kind of like Creighton, um, just because they'll win like 3 and then they'll lose one they shouldn't, and then it's just kind of a cycle. Um, but they went 2-0 this week, in a big win against Iowa State, so I gave them their credit. Um, yeah. Number 13, I got Auburn. See, this is what I was saying. Except for, so Baylor did beat Auburn. That was first game of the year. Baylor was at home. And Auburn, and it was a 6-point game. That was in November. Um, that was November 7th. We're almost, uh, how many months is that? 1, 2, 3. That's 3 months ago. So we don't need to be worrying about that at this point, I don't think. So I think Auburn is fine ahead of them. They beat Ole Miss and Vanderbilt this week. I will say both on the road. Now, well, Vanderbilt wasn't on the road, but Ole Miss was on the road. Now, how good are those teams? Vanderbilt's not great. Ole Miss is pretty good. But, Auburn's still 5th overall in efficiency. 12th in offense, 4th in defense. I think they picked up their first quad one win this week against Ole Miss, which is kind of ridiculous. They beat Ole Miss. They've beat Ole Miss twice now. And when you look at this resume, it's honestly not great. Their best win is probably Ole Miss. They did beat Texas A&M. They did beat. They didn't beat Alabama. They didn't beat Mississippi State. They beat Ole Miss twice now. But this week they will play Alabama at home. If they can get that one, that would be huge. They also play Florida on the road, and then next week they got. Man, this end of the February is gonna be tough for Auburn. Alabama, and then on the road Florida this week. Next week they got South Carolina and Kentucky, and then the next week after that they go on the road against Georgia, and then the week after that they go on the road against Tennessee. That is a really tough stretch to end the month. We will see how they look in that one. They're still very high in efficiency as of right now, but I got them at 13. Moving on, Alabama at 12. This is kind of high. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's good, but it's kind of high compared to a lot of other rankings. Well, that's because Andy Katz has them like 6th or something. But it's kind of high compared to the AP poll. But I really like this offense. Mark Sears is averaging almost 20 points per game. The defense is kind of coming around. I think they're just outside the top 50 now. Yeah, and they're 7th overall in KenPom. They continue to win. They're first in the SEC right now. They had a nice week, beating Georgia on the road, and then blowing out Ole Miss, or not Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They got a tough game on the road against Auburn. We'll see how they look in that one, but as of right now, I got them 12. Illinois at 11. They're 10th overall in KenPom, 6th in offense, 30th in defense. It's a very solid team. They just got a very nice win against home against Nebraska, a team who was kind of picking up a little bit of steam, kind of getting hot. But they held their own and they won. They also beat Ohio State on the road, a team who was needing a win. I was hoping they would get it, but they didn't. As you guys know, I'm an Ohio State fan, and right now Ohio State is second to last in the Big Ten. Pretty sad. They're 13-9. They're not going to make the tournament unless they win their conference. This is kind of a down year for the Big Ten, to be honest. Honestly, we might only see 5 teams make the tournament. Maybe Michigan State, but as of right now, I'd probably only say 5 teams. That is Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Nebraska. Now, we could see a team get a bid steal. I wouldn't be surprised. Like a team like Iowa, maybe Ohio State, maybe Maryland, maybe Indiana. Minnesota's pretty good, but I don't know. But yeah, Illinois had a nice week going 2-0. They're sitting at 11. Moving into the top 10, we got number 10. We got Wisconsin. They had a tough week going 0-2, but when you look at the teams, I mean, road loss against Nebraska in overtime, that's a very hard place to play, and they were leading for the majority of the game. And then they looked really good at home against Purdue. They only lose by 6. Purdue's been dominating, all the teams in the Big Ten. Wisconsin really held their own for them against them, so I was kind of impressed with that. They're 16-6 still, 9th in offense, 33rd in defense. They're pretty similar to Illinois. Wisconsin and Illinois are 2 very similar teams. Wisconsin's 9th in offense, Illinois 6th. Wisconsin's 33rd in defense, Illinois 30th. So Illinois actually has the better numbers, but I do like Wisconsin a little bit better as a team. You could argue those 2 would be switched. I would not complain. I wouldn't, argue with you. Number 9, we got Duke. They lose against UNC on the road. That's a really tough place to play in that rivalry game. And they didn't look bad. They put up 84 points in a 9-point loss. The defense didn't look great, but it is what it is. They're 10th in offense, 38th in defense. If you're a Duke fan, you'd love to win that game, but on the road in Chapel Hill, this UNC team's been playing great. I don't blame them at all. Arizona almost loses to Stanford yesterday. They ended up winning by 11, but they were down by like 10 at halftime. Can't figure out this Arizona team, man. They're still 4th in KenPom, 5th in offense, 12th in defense. They're one of only a couple teams to be top 20 in both offense and defense, which is what I look for in a national title contender. But, I mean, they just don't look good based on what eye test. Now, this coming week, they're going to have a tough week. Road game against Utah, road game against Colorado. Those are 2 teams on the bubble right now. And, Arizona hasn't been looking great. Those are 2 teams tied for 4th in the Pac-12, behind Arizona, Oregon, and Washington State. 2 teams that need a win. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Arizona lost both of them. I don't think they will. Arizona kind of blew both of them out last time that they played. Marquette at 7. They continue to win. They got a huge win on the road against Villanova. That was a team desperately needing a win. They took care of business. They got 1 game this week, home against St. John's. Hopefully they can get that done. They're 26th in offense, 10th in defense. The offense is really coming around. Tyler Kolek had a really nice week this week. Marquette's really coming around. Houston, it's 6. They lose the game at home, or not at home, on the road against Kansas by 13. I mean, that just proving that Allen Fieldhouse is the hardest place to play in college football, or not college football, college basketball. I mean, it is ridiculous how crazy loud that environment is. Houston goes in there and loses by 13. That was the first time in 30 years Kansas was not favored at home, which I think is just ridiculous, a ridiculous stat, but that just goes to show you how it is. Now Houston's still the number one team in KenPom, 18th in 18th in offense, first in defense, by a pretty hefty amount. I mean, six whole points to the second place team in defense. When you're looking at first and second in offense, it is by .2. So that just goes to show you how dominating Houston's defense is. But they lose against Kansas. Kansas, I have at 5. They are back in the top 5. Still not sure about Kansas. They just because of the depth. I mean, even against Houston, they only had 7 bench points, which does worry me come tournament time. But they got it done, so I had to give them their credit. They're moving up to 5. They're 17th in offense, 19th in defense. They fit the 2020 threshold I made. I always talk about if you're top 20 in offense, top 20 in defense, I can consider you a legitimate contender. And Kansas does meet that, but the depth does worry me a lot for them. But they had a huge win against Houston. UNC loses early in the week in a trap game on the road against Georgia Tech. But they go out there and beat Duke at home. Very impressive win. I got them at 4. We could flip Tennessee and UNC, to be honest. It's kind of ridiculous that Tennessee's 6 right now in the AP poll. I mean, that's just I don't agree with that. Tennessee is at lowest 4 for me. They lose at home against South Carolina, but then go out there and beat Kentucky on the road. So let me ask you: would you rather have a ranked win on the road, or an unranked loss at home, or would you rather have a unranked loss on the road and a ranked win at home? I don't know. The ranked win on the road is what I went for. But UNC, I mean, what do you value more, winning against a ranked team or losing against an unranked team? Obviously, winning against the ranked team is more important, and Tennessee did it on the road, while UNC beat Duke at home. Now, Duke is a better team than Kentucky, but South Carolina is a lot better of a team than Georgia Tech. So you could definitely argue those two. I went with Tennessee just because they're higher in efficiency. Tennessee is 15th in offense, 2nd in defense. UNC is 21st in offense and 7th in defense. So Tennessee beats them out in both offense and defense. And then we could just change this to 1A and 1B. Purdue and UConn. At the top, Zach Edey's going to repeat as National Player of the Year. They're both 21-2, I believe. Purdue just won on the road against number 6 ranked Wisconsin and also beat Northwestern, who's in the top 40. Purdue is 1st in offense, 13th in defense. Looking at UConn, they have a very legitimate chance to repeat, and to be honest, right now they would be my pick to win it all. They just look like a different team. 3rd in offense, 15th in defense. They continue to win. They went on the road against St. John's, a team that was needing a win, and they also beat Providence, another team that was needing a win. This week they got Butler and Georgetown. They have a game coming up against Marquette next Saturday. That's going to be one to look forward to. Both those teams are very hot, but UConn, 10-game win streak, and they're sitting right now at 3rd overall in KenPom. Purdue is actually 2nd in KenPom. But I don't know. UConn's been at number 1 for a while, and they've shown me no reason to move them out. So yeah, it's going to do it for the Week 14 College Basketball Power 40 rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you go down there and leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. Comment down below what you think of the rankings. Turn on the notifications to make sure you don't miss out on any of our videos. We got college basketball, college football, NBA, NFL, and MLB. As always, my Discord and X are linked in the description. You can join that. You can follow that, whatever you'd like to do. But I will see you guys tomorrow. or not tomorrow actually. I'll see you guys on Wednesday with Super Bowl picks for NFL. That would be a very fun video. And then maybe we'll do an NBA video this week. I don't know yet. We'll see how much time I have. So yeah, I'll see you guys definitely on Wednesday with Super Bowl picks. Should be a very fun video. Make sure you guys come back on Wednesday and tune into that one.